Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the podcast. There's no interview in this one. This is all review, particularly because TNA, as we all know, likes to do these one night only pay per views, which is a series of pre recorded pay per views that they kind of filter out over the course of the remaining year. Uh, excuse me. And what other pay-per-view could you talk about on the Women's Pro Wrestling Network podcast or YouTube channel, depending on where you're listening to this, than the one night only Knockouts Knockdown, the original one night only Knockouts Knockdown. There is another one that is that has not been released yet. It was recorded on May 10th of this year, which is 2014. But we're going to talk about the first one that took place last year, 2013. Was recorded March 17th, 2013, but it actually began its air dates in September. So you're talking about almost 6 months, September 6th to be exact. So it was about 6 months by the time it actually began to run for people to see. And the reason for this is, of course, I think that some people have been on the fence about a lot of these one-night-only pay-per-views, mostly because of that span of time that takes place between when it is shot and then when it is released, how that affects the matchups, how the presentation, and all that good stuff like that. Well, I can personally say one of the better pay-per-views that I actually watched was Joker's Wild 2, which was a very good pay-per-view for one night only. It exceeded all my expectations on what I thought it was going to be. Some of that may have been because it was in England and it was inside of a different arena than the Impact Zone, and when you sat and you watched it, it was viewed very much like a pay-per-view. It reminded me of those old WWE or WWF at the time Rebellion pay-per-views, where it wasn't a pay-per-view that was going to affect the primary storyline, if you will, but it was a nice little addition. You could watch it, you could enjoy it, and they treated it very much like a pay-per-view. Knockouts Knockdown was not like that at all, in my estimation. I want to say first that the matches were fine. I didn't have a problem with most of the matches, and if you're a lover of the women that's on the independent circuit or beyond, then you'll get a kick out of seeing some of those women show up at the Impact Zone. You saw Alyssa Flash, who a lot of people know as Cheerleader Melissa. Lady Topper was there. This was slightly before she was a full-fledged Knockout Evilise, who is the current Shine champion. Mia Yim was there also. Santana, who we now know as Brittany on TNA. ODB was there, of course. Trinity, who was I guess if you want to call her a Knockout original, she was in TNA at its inception or its early years. Jackie Moore came back. The Blossoms, well, not the Blossom twins, one half of them. Hannah Blossom showed up, and Social Bolt came back. Taylor Hendricks was there. Jillian Hall, who a lot of you remember from back in the day with the WWE with the singing gimmick and that horrible, grotesque growth that she had on her cheek at the time before she started the singing. And Serena Deeb, who also you may remember from WWE television as one of CM Punk's disciples in the Straight Edge Society. So the matches in and of themselves were not bad. But first off, the matches were essentially qualifiers. If you're not aware of what the Knockouts Knockdown is, the entire night is leading the Knockouts toward a gauntlet match. In TNA, the gauntlet match is essentially the equivalent of the Royal Rumble. One person, two people start out and they keep going until everybody's a limit. Last person standing is the champion or winner of the money, whatever the prize is at the end at that particular event. And this event, it was for the crowning of the queen of the knockouts. And so all matches, again, were the qualifiers. Gail Kim versus Alyssa Flash, Lady Topper versus Elise, Tara versus Mia Yim, Miss Tessmacher versus Santana, ODB versus Trinity, Jackie Moore versus Taryn Terrell, Hannah Blossom in a three-way against Soldier Bolt and Taylor Hendricks, Velvet Sky versus Jillian Hall, Mickey James versus Serena, and then you got the winners from those matches move on to the Knockouts Gauntlet match. The preparation for this was you saw the knockouts, and the then leader of the knockouts division, which was Brooke Hogan. She makes her appearance on there as the person that put this all together, and comes out at the beginning and wishes the ladies good luck. Now, everything seemed fine. The setup for it seemed fine. Again, the matches, some of them were not of high pace, or they weren't all winners, but they weren't bad. The problem that I began to have with it is that it felt more and more like a glorified house show, and far be it from me to knock that division. I really do enjoy watching them on television, and I think that they're the most talented women in the world as far as a national outlet is concerned. I just don't think that TNA gave the pay-per-view its just due, in that when you're watching it, there is so much filler. If you're looking at a match with Gail Kim, they open it up with at least 5 minutes of her winning the Knockouts Championship for the first time. When they open the match up with Lady Topper, then they open up with at least a couple of minutes of the gut check info between her and Evilise, and it just went on and on like that, and the filler segments felt so long, it almost got to a point where you kind of forgot that you was looking at a pay-per-view. It's like, man, that's, am I looking at just a DVD version of this? Am I looking at something that should have just been aired on Impact? And nothing felt important. It didn't feel as important when I compare it to the Joker's Wild 2 event that took place in England. That event felt important. They treated it as such. They talked about it through. They had the graphics on the screen to kind of build the thing up. They had backstage segments where people were interacting with each other, and it all came across like a legitimate pay-per-view. Whereas the Knockouts Knockdown version 1 didn't do that for me. It felt like random matches. They didn't give any kind of tie-in from one thing to the next. Not really a set hard rule on backstage segments. You had a few interviews here and there, or a few statements made by various people here and there, but it didn't really translate into anything big, or it didn't really translate into anything that made me feel like, okay, this crowning of the queen of the knockouts was going to be a big deal. More so than that, I mean, if we step outside of the pay-per-view for a moment, you also have the fact that not once do I think that they ever really acknowledged the fact that there is a queen of the knockouts tournament. What does it mean to be queen of the knockouts? Did it guarantee you a title shot? Did it come with money? Did nobody ever walked out to the ring with a crown on, or a sash, or or there was no coronation or anything up like that? And I understand that I'm a little bit spoiled by what the WWE has done over the years. I get that, because the WWE has kind of overproduced things. When you got a King of the Ring tournament, whether that was in a pay-per-view format or whether that was a King of the Ring that existed entirely on Raw, there was a little bit of a coronation. You had them go up and sit on the the throne and get their scepter and their crown and that whole shebang. But you know, it just did not have that feel. Like it was something that was worth winning. It was great to have people that are typically not involved in TNA participate in TNA, but it also made those matches super predictable. You know, I'm trying not to do this with spoilers for people that have that haven't watched it, but you pretty much knew, with the exception of one match or two, you pretty much knew who was going to win here, and that, all right, I'm not going to let my contracted talent lose to somebody that just came in off of the indies. So it was kind of like a huge or glorified squash match, or they came in as somewhat as an enhancement talent. By and large, the pay-per-view itself is worth watching, but I don't know if I would say go out and buy it. If you got the chance and somebody brings it around to you, sure, take a look at it. If somebody uploads that thing on YouTube, knock yourself out. If you can get a hold of it from somebody else, or you can get it for an extremely low rate, then I would say you should go ahead, pick up that DVD. Is worth it if it's low like that. But $20 or whatever the case may be, I didn't feel like it was worth that type of money, but just because they had a few good matches in there, and I enjoyed a bit of the gauntlet, but it did not feel like a pay-per-view should feel. And when I spend my money on the pay-per-view, I want it to feel like it is a big deal. Like there was a lot of things that built to this, and that the goal at the end of it is important. And I never got the feeling that the goal at the end of it was important. And of course, given the fact that it was released 6 months after it was actually taped, and it was shown so far out of sequence, it was like they couldn't really tie this in to anything. Because by the time you watch it, how many people were gone? You know, how many people were actually still in the company? How many people had switched from heel to babyface, or babyface to heel? So, you know, they couldn't really give it any chronological logistics. But I still stand on what they did with Joker's Wild, where, yeah, it was out of sequence. Yes, it was not in chronological order of what they do on TV, but they still did a very good job of building that up within the course of that one pay-per-view, and making the end result feel like it was important to watch, or that it was a nice fun pay-per-view. And I would say, if you get the chance, somebody uploaded the entire thing on YouTube. That entire pay-per-view is up on YouTube, so you really got nothing to lose if you just want to check out Joker's Wild 2. Go check that out. Now, I don't know if the Knockouts Knockdown is on there. I didn't do it. I actually ordered that, but yeah, if you can find it, check it out. Couple of good matches, maybe worth it for that reason, but I wouldn't go out my way for it. That was my review for the Knockouts Knockdown Volume 1. Hopefully Volume 2 would be better. I know they got some bigger names, or some additional names that have popped up on there, and I'm expecting big things out of them. Jessica Havoc, I know for a fact she showed up at the second version of it. Vita Scott, Scarlett Bordeaux, who else was down there? Carly Perez, I think Mia Yim came back. Marty Bell, I'm looking forward to seeing Marty Bell do her thing. So there's a couple of people that I really looking forward to seeing it, and I hope that it comes off as a much better product than the first one did. The first one was nice, but it wasn't really good. It was just kind of a middle of the road event. Sorry to give it such a unfavorable review, but yeah, it just didn't do all that much for me. But you pass judge it. Let me know if you ever get a chance to check it out. Leave your comments down below, and I'll read it. See what you felt was good or bad about it if you had a chance to watch it. Thanks for tuning in to this channel, folks, and we'll get some more videos up, some more matches. Take care, guys.